Good evening. The Telefisher network of transmitters will soon be complete. Building these transmitters has been a major undertaking. They have to be sited in places which will give the best possible picture to the greatest number of people. At Gorey in Wexford, the masts are fabricated by Span Steel Engineering, an Irish registered company whose parent body is in Norway. It rents part of the works of C.J. Murphy, and there I met the managing director of Span Steel, Mr. Bjarne Walterhow, a Norwegian. I asked him what type of work they did there.
In Gorey, we are producing the masts. We get all the raw materials there. We are cutting the round bars, the angles, the plates into exact length. I mean so, cutting saws, shearing blade, and also flame cutting. In addition, we, of course, manufacture, we drill the holes, drill and punch the holes, and we're welding all the gusset plates onto the round bars. We also have a lot of, we also use to check erect as part of the mast before we assemble to galvanizing, to be quite sure that everything is fit as it should.
There are 31 men in the works, 12 of them Irish, the rest Norwegian. More Norwegians are being brought over to get two teams going and so be able to work on two masts at a time. Originally, it had been intended to finish one mast at a time, but a combination of bad weather and shortage of labour and material prevented this. The first transmitter mast at Kapur was made completely in Norway. The metal used in the masts is high tensile steel, and it needs special treatment and handling in the factory. The bars of steel which make up the mast are anything between 24 and 35 feet long. They weigh between 3/4 of a ton and 1.5 tons each. They are first of all cut to within 1/4 of an inch, then machined to very fine tolerances. Some idea of the work involved can be had from the material used in the masts. The Trustmore mast in County Sligo weighs 60 tons and is 355 feet high. The mast at Mulliganish on the Cork-Kerry borders will be 500 feet high and weighs 70 tons. The Irishmen in the Gorey factory had one problem at least to overcome. The blueprints for the masts were scaled in the metric system. The Irishmen were used to feet and inches, but they soon remembered their decimals. One of the labour difficulties involved welders, who were hard to get. The only ones available in this country in any number were in Belfast. One of the welders, who comes from Gorey, was trained in Canada. Mulliganish, in the bleakest of country, is off the road between Macroom and Killarney. At the foot of the mountain is the village of Ballavourney. When the original survey to decide the location of the transmitter was made, the first requirement was building a road. Building a road is a big enough undertaking anywhere, but to build one along the side of a bare mountain is a major operation. The weather is a very big factor. Mist and cloud can cover the mountain top with startling suddenness. Work can start in bright sunshine with the visibility good for miles. A few hours later, you may be hardly able to see the end of your nose. When the engineers were making the first survey of the site, they decided to lay a trail of string behind them so that they wouldn't get lost. This idea was fine until they started to go down. They'd gone about 10 yards and then found that the string had vanished. Goats and sheep had eaten it. But despite the goats and the sheep and the weather, Mulliganish will soon be in operation. Here on top of Mulliganish, the first job was to cut through this turf surface to a solid foundation. Before the digging started, the locals say there was a boundary line showing which side of the mountain was in County Cork and which side was in County Kerry. Now the boundary line is gone, but the row is just a friendly one, and the local people compromise by saying that half the transmitter is in County Cork and the other half is in County Kerry. The mast here at Mulliganish is a temporary one, which is 50 feet high. The permanent one will be 10 times that height. It is under construction at the same time. The actual erection of a mast is a very skilled business. Transporting the fabricated sections from factory to site presents its own problems. Very solid foundations have to be built, for the mast is designed to withstand winds of up to 200 miles an hour. Wind of this force is unlikely, even at the top of Mulliganish. But men who have worked there told me that some of the time it feels as if it's more. It was realized when the survey was first decided on that the weather was going to play a very big part in the building of the network. But just how big a part, no one could tell, for records of conditions in such places simply did not exist. The part the weather played could only be found out the hard way. Now, weather recording equipment will be kept at the transmitters to help the meteorological service. One feature of transmitter buildings is the windbreak, a wall forming a sort of roofless porch. But transport of any sort is vital at the beginning. And here Mr. John Creedon, a local farmer, was able to help. With no road to the top of the mountain, the only way up was on foot or on horseback. Even a science such as electronics has to use the oldest of methods sometimes. Mr. Creedon knows the district well and lives a few hundred feet up the side of the mountain. I asked him about the district and the part he'd played in helping to build the transmitter. Mr. Creedon, you made the first road that went up the mountain.
Well, there was a part of it made years ago.
Mm-hmm. And you made part yourself?
Yes.
How did you actually put it down?
Well, I plowed it with horses and threw small stones, then as a foundation, and put some gravel up on the small stones.
Mm-hmm. And you were one of the first people to help them to get equipment up to the mountain. How did you help them?
Well, they asked me what was the best way to take the equipment up. So I suggested to them that the best way was to take it in with a tractor as far as they could on the road, and to take it the rest of the way in with horses and drays.
Mm-hmm. And what's the climate like on top of the mountain?
I suppose something like Norway or Sweden, which is entirely different to the climate